On the renewed Max side, we're doing about 100,000 a month in sales there right now.
Hey, my name is Felix Tia, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how they transition from selling exclusively on eBay to their own website, what are the assets you can bring over from eBay to your own website, and how to use LinkedIn to drive more traffic and sales to your store. Before our show, I wanted to let you know about Shopify Inbox. It's a brand new free sales channel you can set up right now in your admin. With Inbox, you can manage all the customer conversations from your store and social media in one place. Plus, chat anywhere, anytime using the mobile app or on the web. Most importantly, Inbox can help you close sales since 70% of Shopify Inbox conversations are with customers making a purchasing decision. Use the power of chat to turn browsers into buyers. For more information, visit shopify.com/chat. Today I'm joined by Brian Burke from Sell Your Mac and Renewed Max. Sell Your Mac and Renewed Max buys and sells the complete lineup of Apple devices, delighting customers with a fast, safe, and easy trade-in service, and was started in 2009 and based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, Felix. Thanks a lot for having me on. Excited to talk to all your Shopify listeners.
Yeah, excited to have you on. So let's start from the beginning. So 2009, I wouldn't say you are the longest running business that I've had on this show, but that's definitely a long time in the e-commerce space. Talk to us about how you got into this kind of line of business to begin with.
Well, I've always loved e-commerce. You know, it started off back in the day on eBay, mainly buying, selling stuff on there. And then in 2009, I realized I needed an inbound sales channel. So that's when I built SellYourMac.com to help us, get customers coming to our website and paying them for Apple products and not having to just go through eBay. So yeah, we've been kind of growing that business ever since then organically. And each year we keep it going and help out more Apple customers.
Yeah, you're one of the businesses that I feel like I have heard of or seen around for a long time, ever before we asked you to come onto the show. And you mentioned that you started on eBay. And I think a lot of listeners out there have either considered or are currently on like a marketplace, like an eBay or Amazon or Etsy or something, and are thinking about this transition. And talk to us about like why this kind of inbound sales channel, having your own, like your platform, was important.
I think the biggest thing for us is really controlling the customer experience. And that's the reason we actually launched our Shopify store. Because, on eBay, they have kind of stripped away more and more the ability to control the customer experience and talk to your customers. Just for instance, when someone makes a purchase, you get some generic email. You can't even reach out to them directly on email. So, knowing we could control the customer experience better and interact with our customers more, that was really the reason that drove us to launch our Shopify store. And, we think the customer experience is what's going to keep people coming back. So if you can't control that and they don't know you as your own brand, you're not going to have these customers very long.
Was it kind of like almost a commodity business on eBay, like a race to the bottom? Like, what was your experience that made you realize, okay, we need to own or at least control the customer experience?
I wouldn't say race to the bottom because we're still getting really good pricing on there, but just the fact that when someone comes back to buy their next computer, they're not going to necessarily remember to go search for our eBay name. First, I think they're going to remember the Renewed Max website. So trying to kind of build that trust for the future and, being able to delight our customers in that manner, I think is really important. If we can't even directly email our customers, special offers or send them a gift or anything like that because we don't have their information, that's pretty tough.
That makes sense. So during this transition from like a platform, like a marketplace like eBay to your own website, did you have any kind of assets or anything to help you kick it off better than if someone were just to kind of start from scratch without the experience or the business that was already done on a marketplace?
I think probably the biggest thing that helped us was having all the content to put up. One of the best things I've done through my company since we started is really focusing on building a ton of content, mainly for SEO purposes. And that's helped Sell Your Mac kind of be the number one go-to source for everything Mac on Google. If you type in where to sell my Mac, we're number one on there. So we kind of had a lot of, content built up and blogs and images. And that's the images, I think in particular, really helped us out when we were launching Renewed Max. So we could, sync up the images of all the products correctly and always, make sure we're showing the customer the right thing. And I think there's about 3,000 different images that we, had to pull together, some type of variation. So a lot of different stuff in the back end.
Makes sense. So we mentioned 2 websites at the start of this, and we'll get into your third website a little bit later in a completely different industry. So teaser out there. So Sell Your Mac, was that launched before Renewed Max? Give us an idea of the timing.
Correct. So Sell Your Mac launched in 2009. And at the time we were still selling mainly on eBay. We work with other retail stores and wholesale buyers as well. But we really want to work directly with the customer. We see the most value in going to the end user, both from the standpoint that we can, sell them a computer that's been fully tested, 12-month warranty and stuff like that, as opposed to just selling it, wholesale. So that's kind of why we needed to build the store, is that direct customer experience on Shopify is amazing.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I think one of the unique things about your business model is that most people will start a store or website to bring in kind of demand. You start to Sell Your Mac as a way to solve the supply side for inventory, like procurement.
Yeah.
What were the challenges with that kind of business? Because again, it's not something that I don't think many people think about, starting a business like that. What were some of the unique challenges, especially since you've now started the other side, the demand side with Renewed Max? What are some of the unique challenges with the supply side of a business like yours?
One of the challenges we had was with capital. I mean, as you're buying more product, you need a lot more inventory. You got the hold to be able to have a wider product mix for your customer. And, we're purchasing these products before we actually sell them, which a lot of people obviously are procuring inventory to sell on Shopify, and they're having to prepay and stuff too. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is trying to grow your business quickly. You need to have a really good credit line. And if you don't have, multiple years of financials, a typical bank usually won't give you a good credit line. So trying to find a way to, either not pay for your inventory until after you sell it, or, pre-sell it perhaps, get creative in order to grow your business quickly with, a little bit of money. So I think that was probably our biggest challenge out of the gate, was just, getting enough sales volume and enough profit to support a better inventory level.
Yeah, and I think one of the things when you are buying from like a manufacturer, I'm sure there's going to be listeners out there, and I've had guests that have had horror stories around this, but I think for the most part, it's probably a little more consistency or standardization with the products that you're getting. When you are buying from regular consumers, how did you kind of manage that risk of not really knowing for sure what kind of product you get from one day to the next?
Like you said, it's not that consistent. There's thousands of Apple SKUs out there. So, I mean, if someone's starting out, they could certainly, hone what they're buying, focus on certain years or certain device types, like focus on iPhone, for example, and not worry about all the Macs. So, we do know a lot about the product when we're getting it, and not that every time it comes in that's described, but, we request serial numbers up front so we can kind of confirm exactly what the specs are. And we do check everything once it arrives to make sure it all matches and communicate if it doesn't. But that is definitely a challenge. So I think having a smaller product mix would be a great advantage for someone starting out.
Yeah, and we talked about this before we hit record, which is this basically you are starting your own, almost like your own marketplace to some degree. You again controlling the supply and the demand side. Were there certain points where you're like, wow, there's just way too much demand, way too much supply? Like, how do you kind of find a balance in that kind of business model?
It's certainly tough. I mean, this last year especially, there was insane demand at the start of the pandemic, but there was no supply. On the wholesale buying side, all the businesses were closed and they didn't have anything they could sell you, and all the consumers were needing their devices or passing them down to their kids to do school at home and stuff like that. So it really dried up, and it messed with the pricing in the market, and people were paying crazy prices. And then it came crashing down, kind of halfway through the pandemic. So, I mean, my takeaway on that is, only holding enough inventory that you really need, because prices do fluctuate a lot. But if you see an opportunity to stock up, whether it's before the holidays or something like that, you need to take advantage. It's hard to sell something you don't have in stock.
Yes. So, and when you started this in 2009, where you're probably, you definitely were for sure operating with much lower inventory, a lower kind of turnover than you do today.
Yeah.
Was there a certain point throughout this where you're like, okay, now there's a scale where things feel more stable? Because imagine at the very beginning, there's probably people wanting specific things or selling you specific things that you couldn't find a match for, and vice versa. Was there a certain point where like you kind of hit a stride, whereas okay, now there's enough inventory that it almost feels more like more like a shop rather than you're like bartering between people?
I think it took probably 5 or 6 years to get to that level that we had a kind of a wide breadth of inventory and enough of it to satisfy most people. But we honestly still run into this challenge. I mean, if you ask for a specific unit, I might not have it. And the inventory turns pretty quickly. So I might have had it 2 days ago, but not today. So it is a challenge trying to keep the right amount of SKUs in stock, and our technology doesn't go to the point that it knows to need to buy one SKU as it's selling out, but our pricing model does adjust for our inventory. If we're super heavily stocked on something, we're not going to keep paying top dollar for it. So it's like kind of constantly adjusting for what our inventory is and helping us try to get out to the market and find what we need.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed too when I'm on Renewed Max, and I'm sure when you were selling on eBay as well, was that it's very kind of tech specific or tech driven rather. You put the specs right out there when I'm kind of browsing the shop, which I think is a little bit more, again, technically heavy than if you went to like apple.com and try to buy a laptop. Are you catering more towards a certain demographic that's like knows exactly what they want, knows about what an SSD is, knows about what a 2.4 gigahertz core is? Like how much education is involved in making sure that the consumer is not coming here and like being overwhelmed by, oh man, there's so many different numbers that I'm confused.
It's a great point. Now that you mention it, maybe there are too many numbers. The biggest thing I think versus Apple is that Apple's only selling their current line of products. And if you went to their, refurbished or clearance store, for example, it gets a little bit more tech heavy on the specs. But, nowadays they're like, we have the new iPad Pro, we have the latest MacBook Air. It just kind of, is what it is. Versus, we're catering to a market that, is buying, renewed devices. And it is the specs out there, typically we want to tell a customer everything we possibly can to help avoid any questions about the specs. But I can see your point that, potentially making it easier for someone to understand what they're getting. And we did start something called a Take a Product quiz. And I think, I don't know which product quiz app we use, but I know there's a lot out there that integrate with Shopify. And that's really helped us increase our conversion significantly, because if someone comes to the site, like you said, they don't know exactly what they're looking for. They start that quiz, narrow it down, 13 inch, I need, maybe this type of year, or this type of memory, and it tells them the exact options that work for them. So it makes it kind of really easy if you don't know all the specs to kind of just describe your work and find the product that's right for you.
Makes sense. So when you were launching this business on the supply side, how were you driving traffic? Like, what were you doing to get people to? Well, maybe we'll start there. But I have a question about like how does that change when you're on the demand side? But on the supply side first, what's the marketing techniques to get people to help you with the supply chain?
Ours is mostly organic, which kind of stemmed from being a bootstrap startup. We didn't raise any money to plow into our marketing, and we don't have anyone that does marketing besides me. But we, did create a lot of content, around each Apple computer that's come out in the last, 12 years or so. And that's helped drive a lot of people to the website. So, if you search for a specific Apple product in the past, there's only a few companies that tend to have a lot of content around it. And so that's helped us out a lot. And then you're making sure that we really figured out what keywords we really wanted to go after, and continually making content that includes those words. And so we've added like thousands of pages to the website for each Apple device basically that's come out. And that's our biggest strategy, is just constantly staying up on the SEO side.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think you mentioned that one of the biggest assets coming over from having all these product listings and all these images on a platform like eBay to now your own website. And then you also mentioned how organic's the main driver for a lot of your marketing. Talk to us more about what is the kind of content or SEO strategy.
We need to do more on the Renewed Max side, but on the Seller Max side, it's been a lot around creating individual pages for each device. So, we systematically kind of, pulled all the specs together and created these pages and tell customers, what these products are. So when people are searching for them, they'll land on there and then they have the option to buy or sell that device. So that brings in a lot of traffic.
And I can imagine that, again, there's just so many variations, configurations that matter. And you're looking to match on those specific configurations. Like is that all automated? Like what's your, I'm not sure how many other industries this can apply to for listeners out there, but if you're creating a lot of almost like highly targeted SEO, focused pages, like what's the tactical steps to get that done?
So I think a lot of it was kind of creating like a database that housed information for every single product. And then, when you're creating the pages, you can do it systematically and kind of have it, fill in the blank for, for us, it's, processor type, processor speed, RAM, hard drive, year, stuff like that. And I assume someone could do a similar thing in their industry and just kind of build out whatever those ABCD terms are and then have it, create these pages for you. And, putting them up in a way that Google's going to read them, make sure you have all your, your tags and your H1, H2 headings and all that stuff right. And, over time, that's going to, make you an authority in Google's eyes on all that type of content.
Yeah. And again, I want to touch back on you having those image assets that you're bringing over. And I think that one thing I've heard here and there, but not that frequently, is how much Google search for images is a great kind of SEO strategy. Is that play into what you do? Do people search for, Apple products through Google Images?
We haven't done that specifically, but I think where the images do help us on Google is, with the merchant search, people are trying to buy straight through Google there, that our images will pop up. So I think that has been helpful. What do you recommend for the image search?
No, just saying, like, you have all these images, and I think that I've seen other I can't think, maybe been like more CPG brands, or like I remember a coffee brand that I spoke to that all of their organic traffic, or a lot of it, was coming from people searching up specific beans and what they look like. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it applies. I'm not sure how much people care about what does a 2.4 gigahertz laptop look like to the 3.0. I'm sure it all looks the same to them, but just curious if it plays a role at all.
I have heard of people using memes to drive traffic, so maybe those could be something good for Google Image.
Oh yeah, maybe. And is this the same strategy that you apply on the Renewed Max side? Like, are people coming to, they're putting in like, a specific spec and you guys are popping up high in search results?
Not high enough yet, I would say. I feel like it's still like an adolescent and we have more work to do on it. But that definitely is, part of our strategy is trying to add more content there. We're putting up a blog post, every week or so. And we're also doing a lot of Google AdWords on for any kind of renewed or used device search when people are trying to buy. So I think a lot of our traffic on there is coming through Sell Your Mac. When you're on sellyourmac.com and you can click buy an Apple device, and I'll take you right there. I'm also driving a lot of traffic on there from my LinkedIn, and the Google Ads probably makes up the majority of the rest.
Makes sense. Now, I'm curious, what is that kind of business relationship like with Apple? Do they care what you're doing? Do they like say, hey, I'm sure if anything has happened and you sign like a NDA, you can't tell us, but if there's anything you can tell us, like, is it, I think other people that might be in a similar situation where they are kind of reselling a product and using, maybe not, it's not sellyourapple.com, but it's, you're using some flavor of their identity. Like, how much
say Mac in there?
Yeah, exactly. How much of a concern is that?
So I've certainly had conversations with Apple. In general, they actually love what we're doing, and they respect our place in the ecosystem. On when we're buying stuff on Sell Your Mac, it's helping them by funding new purchases for their customers. On the Renewed Mac side, we're probably more competing to some extent, but I don't think they worry too much about competition. And for the listeners, I think the biggest takeaway is being very careful about trademark terms. And you're allowed to use those in URLs. So companies can certainly, tell you you're not. You typically are allowed to do that, but you cannot use, the trademark terms in your logos and stuff like that. So if you make your website name your logo, that can get you into trouble, but you should always be able to put it in plain text. So that's what I would recommend for there, and then have a separate logo as your actual business logo.
Got it. That makes sense. So now I think one thing you mentioned to us about one of the challenges, and we kind of touched on this earlier, about how can you be sure that you're kind of getting the right product when you're buying it from a bunch of, millions of consumers, is around this idea of fraud. What kind of fraud are we talking about? Like, how is that impactful to your business?
We are frauded way too often. Usually we snuff them out, and typically the fraud occurs when people are trying to send us something that's nothing like they described. They'll send us like a random part from their house and tell us it was a $4,000 computer. So we're not gonna pay anyone for something like that. And we've gotten high-end security people involved to refute some of these issues that have popped up. And then on the purchase side, the biggest issue we see is people taking parts out of the computer. For instance, someone buys a high-end MacBook Pro and they take the logic board out, and then they tell you it's bad and send it back. And those are a little bit harder to refute. But we've set up a lot of different fraud protection to try to help us out. So if people are scammers on the internet, I think Shopify does a great job of detecting some of this stuff, and we've kind of dialed it to some of the tougher settings. So, if a customer emails us and can't buy it, we can, try to work with them and see if they're legitimate or not. But our goal is to stop the fraud before it really happens. So, our Shopify store will automatically cancel orders if it detects fraud, for example. So we'll never end up shipping it.
Okay, so it sounds like there's maybe some kind of profiling where they can tell it's maybe from the same person that's been defrauding a bunch of other businesses, and be able to identify them. But do you also have like an internal process where a product comes to you when they're selling it to you, that you guys are QAing it, and then when it comes back from a return from a review max, that sounds like a lot too, because again, your products are not normalized, they're not standardized. So how do you staff, or how do you have a process around that?
So it's both on the technology and on the team side. So our tech stack will, pull in all the information off the computer and then compare it to what the original quote was. And it'll look at every single spec. And if anything's mismatched, it'll flag it. So we can go back and, review it. Sometimes it's in the customer's favor. They said it had a small hard drive. Turns out it had a, huge 1 terabyte SSD. We'll actually pay them more money for it. But if it's, the wrong year, wrong computer, we'll reach out to the customer directly and just tell them our findings, and, show it to them. And, most people are understanding. Until they're wrong, they didn't know in the first place. And typically we work all those out. I'd say most people have good intentions and aren't trying to fraud us. So there's certainly some people that, tell us, we're wrong, and we'll just send the item back to them and not purchase it.
Yeah, and I want you to go through this thought experiment. Take you back all the way back to like 2008, before you started all this. If you knew the kind of fraud that you'd have to deal with and all this happening, would it have stopped you from starting the business?
There's one fraud in particular that almost put us out of business.
Wow.
So in hindsight, maybe knowing that would have scared me off. But I've been an entrepreneur at heart, basically my whole life. So I don't think it would have scared me out of starting my own business, but maybe I would have been more cognizant of some of the frauds and put better processes in place to begin with. One huge fraud that happened, we got scammed on a huge overseas purchase. And the issue is that trying to win a lawsuit overseas, even when you win, it's almost impossible to collect. So, people need to be very wary when they're sending wires to people, even if it looks like it could be a legitimate company, you might get screwed unintentionally. So, I'd like to tell people to use their credit card for everything they possibly can, which is something that I've done as a security measure. If you're using an Amex, if there's ever a fraud, you can almost guarantee you're going to get your money back. You just, fill out a form and you get the funds before the person can even dispute it practically. So if anything you have that's sketchy at all, try to make sure you protect yourself.
Got it. And just staying in this kind of space real quick, the kind of fraud or being scammed, whether it be maybe more so when it's on purpose, how do you handle this kind of emotionally? How do you make sure you're not, whether it's with your particular industry, or I think a lot of other people that might get scammed or lied to from their manufacturers, and it's just like very devastating. Like, wow, you kind of lose a lot of trust in the business. How do you kind of handle it?
Well, the one really major fraud that almost took us out, I did not handle it, very well at the time. It was super rough and sleepless nights and trying to figure out if we could, continue or not. And ultimately, having my, kind of friends and family, rally around me and, help tell me it's okay. And I'm going to get through it. It, led me down a path to, get back to work and, find more deals. And it took me 6 years or so to actually pay off that debt. It was that serious. And, back on track now. But you have to be that passionate, I think, about what you're doing, or, a big fraud would probably throw you off and you just close the business, say it's not worth it. But if you have that passion to, kind of see where you're going, in the end, I think it'll help you out a lot when you're dealing with those tough times, whether it's fraud or just a bad month, for example.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years to kind of get back on track is definitely testing how passionate you are. So I want to know more about this. Like, what is it that where does your passion stem from? Like, what is it that you're passionate about specifically about being in this business?
I love Apple products. I am definitely a big Apple fanboy. I've been using Apple since I was in grade school. And I love the ecosystem, the ease of use, the privacy, the trusted devices. And they work so well together that I want everyone else to have that same experience. And I realize there's, multiple types of people that not everyone can afford that device, but, hopefully I can sell them a renewed device now in our Shopify store. And then people that want to, trade in, quickly can get good money back on their, current devices that are only a few years old, for example. So I'm very pleased to play a part in that ecosystem to help everyone continuously get the latest and greatest Apple devices.
Yeah, speaking of the latest and greatest, I'm assuming that the business is kind of seasonal that way, where there's a release coming up or a release happens, you get an influx of like the older models coming in to sell your Mac. Like, how does that play out?
The product releases are very good for us. So I love to see when Apple comes out, the new laptop, the M1 Pro that just came out. Those have been selling like crazy. So a decent amount of trade-in coming in on the stuff that's only a few years old. This product release might have been more unique that we're seeing so many devices that are incredibly new being resold. People are selling their 2020 MacBook Pro to get the new M1. And it's because it's that much of a leap in technology. I mean, significantly faster. And kind of the same thing when the new iPad Pro comes out and stuff like that. We focus a lot on the Mac side, so we don't get quite as many new devices like when the new iPhone launch comes out. The iPhone market is really fragmented and crazy with how many offers are out there for even more than they're worth from the carriers and stuff like that. But the Mac releases do drive a lot of business.
And what about, is there much, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of crossover where you have people selling their Mac and like when they're going to renewed Macs, they're the same kind of, I'm assuming same kind of customers in a lot of ways. Is there a lot of, how do you kind of decide how you market to customers that not customers, but maybe contacts that you've acquired on the Sell Your Mac side that are, probably great customers on the renewed Mac side?
We try to kind of cross brand on either site. So, when you're on Sell Your Mac, you see a button to buy renewed. When you're on renewedmacs.com, it's a button in the corner that says, powered by sellyourmac.com. And when each customer is doing a transaction, there is like, marketing materials and stuff that mention our other sister website. And I would love in the future at some point to have it, fully integrated that someone can buy and sell at the same cart level. But that's something that we haven't really, dove into yet. But that'd be really cool if they can get a credit at the same time they're buying another renewed device.
Yeah, that's I can see that being much more seamless for me not to shell out cash, or maybe not shell out as much cash. I can just say, take my laptop.
Save half your money right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to kind of circle back real quick to the fraud thing, because I think it leads into one of the areas of focus that have helped you the most, which is being focused on being the a lot of trust or the most trusted, highest rated in your industry. When you are looking to kind of build that kind of trust, how do you maybe balance the two where you, or maybe they're actually very in line with each other? How do you make sure that you're building the trust with customers? Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you actually build trust with your market?
For us, building trust is like always being available. If you send us a message, we want to get back to you as fast as humanly possible. And I think by staying closer to the customer through quick messages and answering the phone and stuff like that, it builds a lot of trust. I think a lot of times someone will call the business just to see if someone answers the phone, and that's all they need to know that it was legitimate or not. Also really trying to, showcase on the website, our proof sources of, different rankings, whether it's, Google reviews or reseller ratings or, Facebook ratings and stuff like that. So just trying to showcase the customer, as much as we can, that a lot of people have trusted us before. So, hopefully you trust us going forward.
Makes sense. Do you see? So I think being super responsive makes a lot of sense. I think is an area that I think lots of entrepreneurs can kind of take it and run with. Do you have any particular areas that you see other businesses, or maybe small businesses, trip up when it comes to customer service that you think are easy things to kind of fix, or at least low hanging fruit to fix?
I think there's a lot of times that small businesses just don't get back, as quickly as they could. And I think if you can't, answer the messages, on a timely basis, maybe putting an away message up that just says, we'll get back to you in 24 hours, for example. If you don't answer emails on the weekends, tell your customers that. Let them know when to expect their response. And that's something that we, did put up, that we, value our, team members and their families, and that we don't answer emails on Saturday and Sunday, typically. So they're not like waiting for a response. If they have a problem, they wake up at, 10 a.m. They know they need to wait till Monday to hear back from us. So just setting the right expectations, I think, is probably the biggest thing. But, it's like when I started out, I was answering customer service emails in the middle of the night when I would wake up. And it was because I just wanted people to get that, immediate response, to know that we're there to help them. So as long as you're communicating, the speed that you're expecting to get helped, I think that's going to help out a lot.
Yeah, and speaking of more about building this trust, I think at least on Sell Your Mac, you have the amount cash paid out for devices. And I just was testing, so I just refreshed the page and actually did change, the number actually went up. So as of right now, as of the recording, over $46 million paid out for devices. And do you have numbers on just like the growth of the business overall from both Sell Your Mac and I guess more so on the demand side, on the selling side, on Renewed Macs and on the platforms that you sold to? Give us an idea of like how quickly, how large the company has grown since inception.
So on the Renewed Mac side, we're doing about 100,000 a month in sales there right now. And, when we first started the website, probably about a year and a half ago or so, we were only doing, a few $1,000s a month, $5,000 a month the first month, maybe up to 25 within 2 months. So, grown it pretty significantly since then. And, like I mentioned earlier, this is only one of our sales channels. So it couldn't be our 100% focus, but we do know that we want to get more people to this website, just not trying to spend a ton of money doing that, so trying to figure out how we, keep growing organically and stuff like that. And, we have high expectations for this in the future. I'd love to get this up to $1 million a month at some point. And, we're still learning Shopify and all the great features and integrations it has. So I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, going from a couple thousand a month to 100,000 a month is a huge leap in that kind of time frame. Were there certain inflection points where you change a marketing strategy or something that made a big kind of jump in that revenue?
Getting more devices up there was really helpful. At first, we only started off with our kind of A, B, excellent tier devices. And we realized that there was a lot of people looking for a little bit more of a lower cost option. Then we did add the C grade, more fair condition devices on there. And I think that really increased our sales. So just making sure you have something for all the types of consumers is the way to go.
I think one of the maybe counterpoints to that I've heard about kind of having different pricing tiers is that when it comes to a product that's like, even though you're super transparent, hey, this is C grade, this is not the A grade product, you kind of know what you're getting. Are there more kind of, not complaints, but like more returns, like more difficulties with selling a, again, still transparent, but still a lower tier product?
I don't know 100% offhand what the percentages on returns on the fair versus the excellent, but my gut says that there are more returns on the fair. And in general, I think people tend to complain about a scratch or a dent here that isn't specifically listed because it's more of a generic description. It says, it might have a dent. And then someone gets it and it's not in a place that they're comfortable with. So I think they might return it for that reason. So, we definitely prefer to sell the excellent ones. And that's why we started the store that way, is we wanted to have the best experience out of the gate. And we didn't want anyone, upset with the condition of their item.
Makes sense. And is there like because you're familiar, you mentioned how it's very seasonal around these product releases, and there's probably lots of data you have on how soon people want a new laptop. Is there a marketing, like a retention marketing thing you have going on where, at the 1 year mark, customers are ready to buy another Mac? Like, do you try to, is that built into your kind of marketing channel to like know when to prompt or ask people, do they want to buy or sell their device?
That is a great idea, Felix. And we have a conversation with someone later today, actually, about doing some SMS marketing with our Shopify store. And I think that's kind of the direction that we're leaning, is, hitting people up at that exact right point. Because, typically, someone upgrades their computer every 3 to 5 years, upgrade their phone every 2 to 3 years. So you can kind of go around some of those timestamps and reach out accordingly. And sometimes people just might need a little bit of a nudge. I mean, if you just told them you had this great deal in stock, or you had this great offer to buy it back at a special bonus, I think sometimes that can go a long way. So the combination of the right timing and the right offer, I think, is key.
I'm not sure. I'm sure that this exists in your data somewhere, but would you know offhand, do you see people buying like a product going through your system multiple times, where they buy from Renewed Max and sell it back and then kind of make its rounds like from the same device?
Yeah, no, we absolutely do.
That's
and
cool.
We have promo code set up that, we know it comes from the website.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes to let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. That's awesome. Now, I want to talk about a completely different kind of sales channel, and we kind of talked about this off air, which is around how you've been using LinkedIn to grow your business or businesses. Tell us more about what's going on there.
Really focused a lot on, personal branding and, building way more content for LinkedIn the last couple of years. And it's gotten a lot of traction that now I'm getting, average post gets probably 500 likes. Some of them are up to 25, 30,000 now. And that's driving a ton of views and trying to convert those views into website visits. So, typically I recommend having a extremely engaging video and then dropping a link that doesn't seem salesy to your store, for example. So it's all about making it kind of fun for the customer, but then you're also giving them the ability to, check out your business. Yeah. I mean, so I'm looking at LinkedIn right now on your profile. Almost cracking 100,000 followers. So, whoever's listening, make sure you follow Brian to get him to that number. But I had 10,000 at the beginning of the year. So wow. I have 10x. So tell us more about this strategy, because, when I think about, you're, again, selling, Apple devices, like, why would this personal branding matter when it comes to, or rather, why is it helpful when it comes to selling pretty much anything, I guess? It just helps you get in front of more people and, building a trusted audience. They're going to be interested in whatever I have. So, as I've grown over time, I'm seeing the ability to post stuff that might be a little bit more salesy, but actually get a little bit of action on it. So whether I'm, raising money for a charity or trying to sell a Mac, just getting those views up has been very helpful. And it takes a long time. I mean, I've been posting at least twice a day now for 3 years. And finally this year, seeing a really massive uptick on my LinkedIn. So whoever's listening, you got to stick with it. It's definitely a long-term strategy to grow a lot on there, but it's, very fruitful in the end. and you can use it for all your businesses. So whether I'm buying or selling a Mac, or I'm promoting my LinkedIn coaching or workshops, you can kind of do it all.
So what's the content strategy, and how much is it like, hey, buy from or sell your Mac or buy from our renewed Macs versus like, what's the kind of spectrum of very salesy to like just pure content? Like where do you try to land?
I would say only 10 to 20% is salesy, and maybe the 10% is a little bit more direct. And then 10% is more of a soft sell. And then 80%, nothing to do with sales at all. Really just giving people the content that they want. You need to think about what's in it for them, not what's in it for you. And then when you finally do make that post, that 10% that's more salesy, your audience isn't really offended because they like the last 9 posts you did were actually okay. So they're not offended you're being salesy now once in a while. But the people you see that are trying to sell you in every single post they make, you're not going to be liking their content for very long.
Yeah. And when it's just, again, a non-salesy content, that the other 80%, is it related to Apple products? Like what is the relation to your businesses?
I do find some content that's, kind of fun, Apple stuff. Today I got a video prepped of someone coring an apple in a really fun way. So it's kind of a really subtle reminder about, using Apple. But a lot of it could be like related to just like technology, for example, like these futuristic, cars that look like they might be an Apple car, but they're not. That's just kind of a reminder that, I'm selling technology and, helps clue my audience into, kind of the overall industry I'm in, but not specific to what I'm actually doing.
Yeah. So when you started posting on LinkedIn, did you know that this was the kind of the right sales channels? I think people out there might be thinking, oh, my business doesn't really make sense for LinkedIn. Is kind of the, I think, immediate response for someone that might not do it. I'm sure you have the same thing from your clients that might want to work with you. What's your response to that? Is that ever accurate?
I would say that you can sell almost anything on LinkedIn. I mean, the fact that the LinkedIn audience now is 750 million, I'd have to assume that your buyer is there somewhere. So it's really just trying to figure out the right type of content that's going to, reach them, that they're going to resonate with, and, for my audience, it's kind of inspirational and fun, but that can, vary for everyone. If you have a very tech specific product, like maybe you're just posting about, tech and innovation all the time. And then people, follow you that are into that. And then you happen to have, tons of people in your network that, are your potential buyers in there.
Makes sense. So when you are, I guess, working with your clients, and where can they go to find out more about your specific LinkedIn services?
They can go to brianthemacman.com.
Awesome. So when they go there and they're a client of yours, what is the strategy? Give us like the high level, or then whatever you can share about someone that maybe has a LinkedIn profile, has 150 people right now that they're connected to, but they want to give it a serious effort. Like what's involved in kind of getting things going from that kind of stage?
Ooh, we could do a whole podcast just on this. So I'll try to hit a couple high level things.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is trying to really hone your profile. I mean, having a photo that is trusted as your profile picture, you need to be looking to the camera, smiling, your eyes open. You need to make sure it pops. Most of the time the pictures are very bland. You can use a filter or, make the photo, in Photoshop or something like that to make sure it really pops with a certain color. I also recommend, having a headline that is intriguing. So for me, I talk about buying, $46 million of Apple devices. And that leads to so many clicks that people just want to learn more. They have no idea what I do, but they're intrigued and they want to learn more. So once they land on your profile, you need to make sure that you have a cover photo and an about story that really talks about, your business in an interesting way. So like for me, my cover photo is my team, but in the middle of it, it says, I want to buy your Apple devices. So thinking about the cover photo, kind of like a billboard, it could be your team, your company building, whatever it is. But, thinking about, if someone only could read it for 3 seconds so they can understand what your business does. And then telling your story in your about section, I would recommend kind of a blend of, personal and business. People want to know about who you are as a human, not just that you're a salesperson. So, tell them your hobbies and stuff like that. And hopefully they're going to resonate, kind of learning about your hobbies and who you are. And then close with a call to action. What do you want people to do? A lot of times you visit someone's profile, you don't even know how to buy from them, for example. So, give them the link, tell them what you'd like them to do. So I think in, multiple places in my profile, people know that I buy and sell Apple. Don't try to hide what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think one of the unique situations that you're in that I've seen here and there as well is that you start a business, right? Sell Your Mac, Renewed Macs, and then you realize you have a particular expertise in growing this business, right? LinkedIn is the one for you. I think other people might maybe find a lot of success with TikTok or Facebook ads or whatnot, and they see that, okay, this is something that they can, offer to the world. They can build another business on top of this expertise. Tell us more about like how this transition, or not transition really, but like how this new addition to your kind of repertoire, how your businesses. How do you do this in a kind of a skillful way?
I seemingly add a new business every 2 years. So I'm keeping the trend going this year by, starting to offer these LinkedIn classes and workshops. I guess I realized I had such a knack for growing on LinkedIn. I wanted to share that gift with people. So I first started by becoming a Vistage speaker, and Vistage is like a CEO roundtable group around the world. And so that got my name out to a lot of these different, business groups. And I started getting some clients from that. And then I realized that I didn't have any place to tell people where to go to learn more about me. I was just, sending them an email with like, a couple paragraphs of, text copy. And that's when I decided I needed to build a Shopify store for my personal brand and my classes. I want to make sure they could land somewhere and, learn more about it. And, buy directly from there. I don't have to send them any of their invoices or, PayPal links or anything like that. So I think just, as you're thinking about new ideas, the ease to start that Shopify store, pretty straightforward, and I can go in and edit my own pages, and I'm, paying for the lowest tier, the $30 a month. So there's not much hard cost to, kind of get going, fortunately. So I definitely recommend kind of people segmenting out their different businesses on individual websites to make people understand exactly what they're doing and not trying to, push all the same offerings you have on one website, for example.
Yep. And speaking of doing all that, so sellyourmac.com, renewedmacs.com, brianthemacman.com. And I want to leave you this last question, which is that, so you got a bunch of things going on, a bunch of businesses going on, 2 years from now, you're going to start another one. What do you think though is the one area of focus that you want to devote time, energy into to kind of get your businesses as a whole to the next level?
I would say continuing to focus on the LinkedIn and the branding as the Mac Man. And that will allow me to launch other, Apple related businesses in the future and really help me, do larger deals as we go. I'm winning business, almost every day on LinkedIn. I have, hot leads coming into my inbox from my content. And it's a lot about people just, seeing my headline, for example, and, learning more about me than sending me a message about it. And I think by creating a market presence for yourself like that, you'll have opportunities, for many years to come, and then have the ability to launch, more businesses off of that, whether they're 100% related or not. But yeah, I think the branding as the Mac Man is the way to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience and story with us, Brian.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Good to talk to everyone here, and I hope they connect with me and I can help them out.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.